In this video, we're going to go over some soloing ideas for Pensativa. This is the third tutorial in our series. The first couple of tutorials dealt with the tune itself and some voicings that you can play along with the melody. In this video, we're going to focus more on soloing, some scales, some chords that you need to use in order to make your soloing sound a little bit better. I know as piano players, we're always trying to get better. That goes for all musicians as well. It's not just for piano. The chords and scales and things that we talk about here apply to all instruments. And when you're a piano player, it's a little bit easier because if you take a look at the keys, you've kind of got your orchestra laid out in front of you, and it really helps you visualize what you can do with your playing. So what I'm going to do is play you the tune and a chorus of solo. And again, this is not the easiest tune to solo on. It doesn't really follow a lot of conventional harmony, which is good because you can then separate the chords and then apply those chords and scales to other jazz compositions and lead sheets and tunes. Pensativa is, again, a very odd mix of chords, but you can literally like take those chords and do something with them. And there's a lot to do here. And you can learn a lot from this video just by thinking about the chords a little bit differently. Okay, let me play the tune for you, and then we'll come back, we'll dive in and start to tear it apart and discuss some of the details. All right, well, I hope you can hear some of the ideas that we're going to be discussing here. It's, again, if you're looking at Pensativa just as an exercise, it's definitely a little bit complicated in terms of the way the chords are put together. So let's take a look at the tune and the structure first. Off the top, you've got 4 bars of just 2 chords, G flat major 7 and G7 sharp 11. So that just kind of repeats a couple of times, and then it gets into the melody here. We'll call this A section, and then it repeats. So there's a repeat sign here that just goes back to there, and then there's a B section, or the bridge. Let's just write bridge down here, which starts on C, in the key of C, and then goes into the key of A. So you got C and A, and then the key here, I mean, the key of the moment is G flat, but again, it's really unconventional chords. So let's take a look at the G flat major 7th chord first and see what we can do with that. So when I think about G flat major 7, the first thing I do is try to find a voicing in the left hand that I can just play scales with. So in this case, I'm playing 1 and 5 and then the 7. You can play the 3rd as well if you want. And then the scale. Now you'll notice that's not a typical scale. This is a typical scale. What I'm doing is I'm playing a bebop scale, which is in major 7th chords, it is a flat 6. That note there. So I think what we can do is just quickly write that out. So you've got G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat. So there's our first 4 notes. And you've got D flat, D natural, which is the flat 6, E flat, and then F. So again, we're not playing this chord here, this one, so we'll just kind of get that out of there. Okay, just so it's not confusing. So if you're thinking about soloing, you can just kind of mix those notes up a little bit with the chord. So if the chord is G flat major 7, so just think about getting some chords and some scales together. And then when it gets to the G7 sharp 11 chord, let's just put that over here. So take this G7 sharp 11 and put it here instead. We're going to play also a bebop scale, but in this case, we're going to do a sharp 11. So G natural, and I'll write the accidentals in a moment. And that's, this note here is the bebop scale note. So you've got natural, natural, natural. This is actually C sharp, and then D natural, E natural, and F natural. So the sharp 11, which is the C sharp, what you can do with that is not just play the scale, but you can kind of focus on the sharp 11 in terms of like a D chord, or sorry, an A chord. So 9, 11, 13. So if you put those 2 chords together, That's how to think about it. That's not necessarily great soloing because, of course, soloing means you're making little melodies as you go along. So if I'm going back and forth between G flat major 7 and G7 sharp 11, which happens a lot in this tune, I start to think about, okay, how can I repeat little melodies? So things like this. So that's one of the things about playing for a long time is you kind of forget about the scales and the chords once they're underneath your fingers and you just search for little melodies. And that's really the trick to being a great improviser. Okay, let's move on in the tune a little bit and see what other trouble we can get ourselves into. So the first line of the A section is basically just those two chords and it continues into the first bar of the next 4 bars. And then you've got this E flat 7 sharp 9 chord. So the first thing we're going to do is just give you a voicing to play in the left hand. Let's grab something to write with here. So we're talking, let's grab the third of the chord, which is here. Let's do it in black. So here is a G natural and then a D flat, which is in the key signature, or C sharp, which is the 7th of the chord, and then you're going to get all the way up here to G flat. So then to solo over that chord, basically I would think about the chord itself. It's really tough to pull a scale out of there. It would probably be like a diminished scale, and I have videos on how to play over diminished scales, and it would be something like this. It's such a dissonant chord that you can play almost any note. But you really don't want to do that. You also want to catch the chord itself. I do think diminished scale is probably a good idea. Let me put a link to a video up here in the corner on how to use scales built on diminished chords. Because, again, it's something that you definitely can rely on. Okay, I'm not going to write the scale out here because I'm going to post a link and look up in the corner for that link. And then when you get to D major 7th chord, I think we can all know how to deal with that. Put an interesting chord in the left hand. Just a D scale. And if you want to do the bebop scale, and then A flat 7. So I would play fourths in the left hand, sorry, on the D chord. I would say, you know, think about E natural, A natural, and D natural. The reason why I'm writing these in is because remember our key signature is 6 flats. And then the A flat chord, interesting chord in the left hand. You've got D flat, A natural, C natural, and then F natural. That's a great chord. And the scale, again, diminished scale. Goes by fast, so yeah, you can do some cool things with that. let's move on in the tune a little bit. I'm trying to get as much of this in as possible because, you know, there's a lot going on here. So let's go to the next line and see what we can do. We've got G major 7. That is not the toughest thing to do. So the scale would be a bebop scale with the sharp 4. And then 2/5 of F sharp. So remember this G flat minor 7, that's also F sharp minor 7, which kind of makes more sense. And that, you might want to refer to some videos that I have about 2/5 progressions, because now we have 2 of them in a row. We've got a 2/5 of E. And we've had the D major 7th chord before in this tune. So let's write out, and this is probably the last thing I'm going to do here, and that'll give you quite a few ideas to work with, is I'm going to and let's continue on. Let me write that out for you because that's a neat pattern that you can do for bebop, which is A flat, because what we're doing is we're basically spelling the chords. So you're going from A flat, actually it's from the bar before, let's anticipate it. So A flat, and then A natural, and then C sharp or D flat, and then E natural, all the way up to A flat, and then you've got a E flat to D flat. This is really a Stitt bit, and I do have videos on Stitt's bits that you might want to look up on my channel. In fact, let me just post a link up here to that one. And again, you can just repeat that in a different key here, right? I mean, it's not great soloing, but it gives you ideas, right? So from the beginning of the line. Right? Not a bad line. So that's combining scales with those Stitt's bits as well. And again, we've had the D major 7th chord before. And I said that that might be it. Yeah, we are going to need to tackle this D flat 7 chord because it's an odd one in the middle of kind of nowhere. So basically, you know that the tritone substitution for that is G7, right? They contain the same tritone. And, you know, why is it D flat 7 leading to a G7 chord? Because, you know, these are the same chord, basically. So, and it's a half step above G flat major 7. So you have to think about it as, you know, this is 5, 1. So this is 5, 5 to 1, right? So that means that the destination chord is the G flat major 7th chord. Therefore, you want to figure out a way to get there with a G7 or a D flat 7. So you could probably throw a little bit of bluesy stuff in there. you think about, like I say, blues, put a question mark on that, and your dominant scales, chords. Let's go back to the tune and see what we've got so far in terms of sound. And as I go through it, I'll just try to refer you to some of the things that we were talking about. So the first two chords is like the chord and the scale. And then that'll take us to this section. Okay, and then we get to this section where now we've got the major 7 and then a 2/5. Which is kind of nice. And then we get just one chord leading to the G flat major 7, which is this. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool tune. If you have suggestions that you'd like to see me kind of try out, that would be great. If you'd like to make a video of your soloing over Pensativa, I'd love to hear that and see what you're doing with these ideas. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can post them below. One of the things that I would like to ask of you is if you got to this point in the video, any comment that you write helps the channel. So even if you want to write thanks, that would be great. Even if you want to write, I don't really get it, you can do that too. But if you leave without writing anything, it doesn't really help the video because part of the YouTube algorithm is it likes to see engagement. So write anything, like thumbs up would be good as well. And if you consider subscribing to the channel, if you got this far in the video, we've got tons of videos just like this one that can help your playing. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for your time.